Shana, hey, this video was pushed ahead of my other two videos that I had planned because holy shit, we all thought I was done yelling about people's right to get paid for their art, didn't we? Well, it turns out that I got another reason to yell about that exact same thing again, so I feel like it's going to be best placed right after that previous video where I did exactly that. Now, we might have some people here right now who say something along the lines of, "Oh, but you already said everything you could possibly say on the subject, though. We get you." And yeah, I mostly have. But if there's one thing that people who know me should be aware of at this point, it's that if I stand for something and I feel very strongly about said something, I will yell for as long as I'm allowed before somebody straight up tells me to shut up. So, when I heard that this was suddenly a situation that people were mad about, I decided to make my one and only exception to my policy where I refuse to talk about a specific situation or person, because oh boy, this is something I want in on. Now, let's get a couple things out of the way first. For those who are new here, or those who have somehow missed all the times that I said that I'm a furry, yeah, hi, I'm a furry. As in, I have a fursona, and I made my own fursuit, which I love to wear to conventions, and furries make about 60% of what I draw, and a huge chunk of my friends are furries. I felt that this is something that I needed to clarify before I went into the topic of talking about a freaking fursuit. For those who are not educated on the subject of furries, let me just give you a quick crash course in what a fursuit is, just in case. A fursuit is to furries what cosplay is to anime fans, basically. But instead of cosplaying as your favorite character, a fursuit usually is a character that the owner made themselves and wear around to show off their own persona and to bring them to life as much as possible. Now, I know that there's a stigma surrounding furries, and fursuits for that matter, and that a lot of people outside of the fandom think that it's just for boinking. And to avoid people spewing that in the comment section like some form of gotcha moment, yeah, yeah, it happens. It's not the majority, but it's also not that uncommon. I don't do it personally, as I have zero interest in it, and my partner also doesn't care for it at all, so it's not for me. But I do acknowledge that it is a thing, and honestly, I couldn't care less. It's people's own things. If they want to boink in suit, then what's the harm? It's their business. And they are more than welcome to mind their own business in their corner, while I mind mine in my corner. I mean, hell, I'm into things that might be weird to a lot of people, so I'm in no position to judge. But I will not elaborate further on that, and I'm pretty sure you guys can understand why. There's also a very common misconception that all furries own fursuits. They don't, actually. The percentage of people who own one versus the one who don't, it's minimal at best. Hell, the majority of people who don't own one don't even want one. It's just some extra flair to the persona, which isn't something everybody enjoys. But a lot of those who don't own one, they don't simply because they can't afford it. And that's where today's topic comes in. Just like art, a fursuit takes a lot of time and patience to make. And let me tell you, the saying that it takes a lot of blood, sweat, and tears is in a literal sense in my case when I made my own two suits. And on top of that, they are not that cheap to make either. When I made mine, I spent about $500 on the fake fur alone. But of course, I also needed the foam, a new glue gun, glue for said glue gun, craft foam for the eyes, paint, clay, additional fabric, thread, etc. All of this money came out of my own pocket, and all of the time spent was my own time. If you want good quality stuff, you're going to have to cough up a pretty penny for the materials before you can even begin the hours upon hours of work. And for a beginner, such as myself, it might feel like money thrown into the sea because the result wasn't at all what I would have wanted normally. So a lot of people resort to just skip the making step entirely and let somebody else do it by spending a lot more money and buying a fursuit from an already established maker. And let me tell you, this is a huge business scene. We have some very known makers who make intricate, high quality suits, but there are also smaller and beginner makers who tend to charge less for their work. So while no fursuit will be under a few $100s, you don't always need to spend several thousand on it. Though, just like it is with art, some people have it in their heads that they can get these wearable pieces of art for free. I've run into my fair amount of people who have demanded they get one for free. I even saw someone in a Swedish fur group on Facebook asking multiple times for people to make him a free fursuit because he didn't want to pay for one, just in case he didn't like it. And even though people told him multiple times that nobody will do that unless he paid for it, he kept asking until he was eventually thrown out of the group. Also, did I mention that this was a grown ass man? Not a child, but somebody around my own age, if not older. People do this all the time. I've had people try to demand I make them fursuits too, and somebody tried to decide the price for me and said, I will pay you $200 for this, which is not even the cost of the materials. Bottom line here is, fursuits are expensive to make and therefore will cost quite a bit to buy. And just like it is with clothes, higher end brands will cost more. End of. A reputable maker who has been in the business for a very long time, are known for their good business practices, has good quality suits that are very durable, and have been expertly crafted to make the best possible products is going to cost more than one from a maker who has made one or two suits before and haven't fully grasped how to do it yet, and who uses all of the cheapest materials they could get their hands on. This isn't that difficult to figure out. I'm not saying that all small makers have less than stellar quality, though. There are some lesser known makers who have great quality suits for a fraction of the price of a high end one. You just have to dig for them because their names might not be out there yet. Some makers have a flat price that they take, others have a base price that gets added to depending on what you want, the amount of detail of your character, etc. But others take it to a different approach, where they start an auction where the highest bidder ends up getting the suit. This is where today's topic fully comes in, and this is what I want to talk about. Enter Surrey Studios. Now, I didn't know about Surrey Studios until today, but they're a fursuit maker based in the Czech Republic, and just by looking over their work, they clearly know what they are doing, and these suits are absolutely gorgeous. 10 out of 10, would commission if I wasn't broke AF. So, what's the problem here then? Well, the quote unquote problem is that Surrey Studios dared to have the absolute gall to start an auction for a custom made fursuit where the highest bidder would get a full body fursuit, a head made from scratch, which means that the entire thing would be built from the ground up by hand, including hand paws, feet paws, a tail, and with a promise to have every last detail of the design taken into consideration to provide the best quality fursuit they could. In short, a one-of-a-kind, wearable, handcrafted piece of art of a character of their own choosing. The starting price for this was $5,000. A reasonable asking price for something like that, honestly, if you ask me. But for those who aren't really well versed in the furry fandom and fursuits, which honestly, I don't blame you for not, it might sound like a crazy amount of money for something like that. But when you take into consideration the material cost and the hours upon hours it takes for somebody to sit and make that suit, by hand, mind you, 5K really isn't that much to ask for. So, why do people have an issue with this suit auction exactly? Well, because the current bid at the time of writing this script and recording is 23,500 with a day left to go off this auction. To me, who refuses to stop being vocal about how artists deserve to get paid fairly, this is fantastic. While I personally wouldn't pay 23K for a fursuit, the fact that somebody is willing to give this maker that much money for one of their suits, an entire 20,000 more than what they asked for, it makes me so excited for them. But if this was how everybody in the fandom felt, I wouldn't be here talking about it, now would I? In fact, I found out that this auction was even a thing that was going on because I suddenly had a lot of posts popping up telling people to stop bashing them for the 20K fursuit, and that people needed to stop being offended that it's being sold for a 5-digit sum. So I made a post on Twitter asking for clarification, and one of my friends came in and linked me to the auction. And yeah, I don't see why people are offended by the price of this suit. I really don't. I went over this in my other video too, that you're out of your range does not mean overprice. You also have to keep in mind here that this is an auction. The maker didn't ask for $23,000, but the demand for one of her suits is so high that the people who want it are willing to pay that much. It's a lot of the same people bidding too. The first person who bid the original asking price of $5,000 also placed a bid for $21,000 after a bidding war with the current highest bidder, who joined the bidding at $14,000. These people want this suit and they are willing to pay a high sum of money to get it. There's a term in the fandom that we refer to as quote unquote suspiciously wealthy furries, who own several expensive art pieces and suits and who are still more than capable of getting around in everyday life and live extremely comfortably while still flinging money at artists that they like. And while some might think it's irresponsible to spend that much money on talking animals, it's still up to each and every individual person to spend their spare money as they please. If they want to spend $23,000 on a fursuit, they very well can do that. I understand if you're bummed that you can't compete with these people's bids, but at the same time, it's an auction. The highest bidder gets it. You can't just demand you get everything and that everybody needs to take your financial situation and limits into consideration for their own spending habits or investments. They shouldn't have to contact everybody who bid less than them and ask, hey, is it okay if I raise the bid by a couple $1,000s? No, that's not a realistic thing to ask for at all. I know it sucks not being a part of the cool kids club who can afford these expensive high-end luxury items, but there are certain things that I can't afford right now because getting a job in the middle of a fucking pandemic running loose on the world, and the fact that I currently can't walk after I sprained my foot, yeah, it really hasn't been an easy thing to do that. But I also understand that these luxury items are just that, a luxury. It's not something that I need. I don't need this fursuit. I have one that I made myself of my own persona, and while it doesn't look as good as my dream makers, it's still something that I didn't need to begin with, but rather something that I wanted because I liked the idea of it. I also understand that needs should always come before wants, every day of the week. When you have your needs handled, then you can look into the wants. If you can't afford it at the time, just put some money away and save up. I saved up to be able to buy my Switch and my iPad, which are the most expensive items that I own right now that I paid for all on my own. I could have bought both of these earlier if I'd been less responsible with my money, but I realized that things like getting my mental health in check is more important. Because now, when I finally have my ADHD diagnosis, I can look into resources to cope with that and help me finding a job. So, where am I trying to go with this exactly? Well, basically, stop being salty that some people can afford to spend more money on fancy things than you can. No one owes you any consideration when it comes to bidding whatsoever. If it goes out of your price range, that's that. You knew that could happen when you placed your first bid. If you don't want to have to deal with that, then just find some flat sales where the prices are firm and save you the frustration of losing out because somebody had more money. We got it? Good. We can't always have every single thing that we want, and I'm so proud of the fandom for actually standing up this time and saying that this fursuit maker deserves every single dollar they get from this auction, and that people can just look elsewhere if they can't afford to join in. Some people even offered up suggestions with a cheaper price tag for those people who weren't able to afford to join in with this auction. Though I can't help but to wonder if the people who are angry are the same people who think that they should be given anything for any price that they can afford without giving a damn if the seller ends up having to pay out of their own pocket and losing money by giving you the thing at a discount. Well, that was all I had to say on this. It's a bit shorter, but I just wanted to get this off my chest because, oh boy, did this thing irk me. If you like what I do, then feel free to check through the rest of my videos. The past few ones that I've made have been of considerably higher quality than the older ones, but if you enjoy them, feel free to subscribe for more. If you like my art, but you'd rather not listen to my blabbering on top of that, I have my own social media down in the description. Though, I would only recommend my Twitter if you're over 18, because I follow a fair amount of not safe for work artists, and my art only account has some not safe for work content on there as well. So, if you're a minor, please consider DeviantArt or Instagram instead. And with that, I'm off. Take care, wash your hands, drink water, and be kind to one another. Hejdå!